After his 1000th successful mission, Jebediah Kerman is on vacation, and at the same time, Valentina Kerman has taken over his work, currently testing a new fighter jet for the Vooperian government. But something's on the runway. She swerves to the side to be safe and decides to go check it out, as this is definitely against OSHA standards. It would appear to be an entire mobile home in the center of the runway. She jumps out of her aircraft and begins investigating. Who could have possibly been stupid enough to bring their entire house onto an active runway in the Space Center? It's a familiar face. It's Jebediah Kerman. She initially yells at him about how stupid he is before asking him how he got there in the first place. Jebediah explains that he bought 20 square feet of land on the airspace on Craigslist, and so he has every right to be there. Valentina argues with him that this is absolutely ridiculous, but he refuses to move. Noticing that the engines of the jet are much louder than they were before, Jebediah decides to check on just how close the plane is. But what is this? It scratched up the front of his house. This is unacceptable. To show the government that he will not be a pushover, he decides to go back into his house. And then, after some devious thinking, decides that the only way to fix this issue would be to mark up the ship that hit him. He uses the mobile house to ram into the spaceship. Leaving minor damage. Valentina leaves, telling Jebediah that she's going to tell the government about his misuse of government property, as she's pretty sure that those materials on the house were actually stolen from the lab. Considering they all have the lab markings on them, and they say manufactured by the Kerban government. After having slight trouble getting onto a ladder, she manages to access her comms and asks the government what to do about this. Initially, they tell her to go on with the tests anyways, and so she runs around and decides that a military plane has got to be more powerful than a mobile home, so she shouldn't have to worry about hitting it slightly. Jeb even seems to be egging her on, moving the mobile home closer to her and speeding up in the direction of her plane. She throttles up, and what's gonna happen? Who will survive? It would appear that, although taking slight damage initially— oh, never mind, she's gone. And it would appear there was no actual damage to Jebediah's house. The Kerbal government immediately responded with an armed attack of missiles. Look, they take a while. They fired 3 of the mini missiles on the major missile. However, none of the actual scientists were trained in the military, so they didn't hit anything. This was it. Would the missile take out Jebediah and clear the runway, or would he remain being a menace? His house grew into view, and it looked almost as if, oh no, they were terribly undershooting it. Once again, none of them actually knew how to pilot a missile. And it crashed into the ground. Because of their terrible aiming skills, the government decided that the easiest way to take out Jebediah would be using a rover-based missile, and so they had the engineers throw together the quickest thing they could, which was pretty much a box with a missile strapped to it, but for all purposes it should work against the menace that was Jeb. After warning Jeb several times, they decide to light the fuse. And it does absolutely no damage. It looks like Jeb built his house out of reinforced materials from a secret government project. This was not good. The rover ran out of power, they couldn't even ram it. But they had one last trick. A Mallard refitted for military purposes and piloted by Bill Kerman. Bill actually had no prior piloting experience, and the runway was covered, so they had to make do with this rocket launch pad. However, there were some issues with that. They decided to just go full throttle and deal with it. Although suffering minor damage, the Mallard was still good enough to roll along the ground, and that's all they really needed to do anyways. Excited that they actually had weapons on board, the two decided to test them out before attacking Jebediah. They were most interested in the laser. They activated the laser, and it worked! But they happened to use all the power from it before they even got to Jeb, so it looked like the missiles were the only option left. They were getting close. They decided to arm the missile launchers, and this was it. After a single successful test, they decided that this was the way to take out Jeb. And fire. The missiles hit Jeb's house, doing minor damage to the outside. But little do they know, Jeb had already left. Another pair of missiles hit the house, destroying all of Jeb's life savings in an instant. Getting slightly trigger happy, they decide to make sure that it's completely gone. And they do a good job at it. However, they got a little bit trigger happy with the throttle as well, and because they weren't actually trained to fly, the two had no clue what they were doing. However, they had saved the day. For now, because Jeb was now angry and hiding with a lot of government stolen materials. Dun dun dun.